Okay, hello. Welcome again to a new episode of the KewCast. I'm John, and I'm joined again by a recovering from eye surgery, Eddie. How are you doing, buddy?
Always recovering from something, it feels like.
I'm the one that's always injured. But you had some minor eye surgery this last week, right?
Yeah, they did a little nip and tuck on the old eyelid. It was starting to come down, and I was losing 25, 30% of my vertical vision. And so they just kind of cut the eyelid, sutured it up. And tighten things up a little bit. So I know it's going to be good. I'm just still in recovery at the moment. Was it like the similar surgery that Rocky Balboa got in Rocky 1? I'll have to rewatch that. Get back to you.
It was this coach he just got a razor blade and sliced it open. He's like, get back in the ring.
I don't think I've ever seen a Rocky movie in its entirety.
Really?
There's 5 of them, right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Well, you and I will have to one day rent one and
movie
watch
marathon.
Rocky 1. There we go. But yeah, well, I'm glad to hear you're recovering, and the eyelid thing just explains why you never liked to be lobbed. You especially disliked to be lobbed.
It's like picking out a handicapped person.
Well, I never knew. Well, speedy recovery for you, Eddie, I'm glad to get that taken care of. And we do have a excellent show this week.
We're
gonna talk about some latest news and gear gossip, some of the rumors on the JOOLA Pro 5s. We have the Apes Joy to look at for paddles of the week, as well as the enhanced EPP Turbo. Some gear of the week. We're going to take a look at the Selkirk Court Strike shoes V2.0.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is V3.0. Didn't they?
No, I think it's number 2.
Okay. And finally, we're going to deep dive into Tales from the Ball Cannon. We're going to look at some launch angle of balls and spin. I've been collecting more and more spin data and found some interesting patterns there with regard to launch angle. We're finally going to explain what in the world is launch angle on the paddle.
Thank goodness.
We've gotten a lot of questions about that, and now we know. It's going to take some splaining, though. Finally.
You got to keep you on a timer for that one.
Finally, we got some Q&A. Let's jump into it, Eddie.
Yeah, let's go.
JOOLA is coming out with their new paddle. And I think it's March. I have it written down here. March 6th, I think, was what I recall as the potential release date. Now, I have been invited to their launch event, which is going to be the third week in February, here in just a couple of weeks, right before the Mesa PPA. So I'm traveling to Mesa, Arizona, and I'll go to that JOOLA event. I will be at that PPA, so if you are there, please stop by and say hi. It always makes my day. And competing in that PPA as well. Also, I've got 2 events. So me and Matt, the CEO of Friday Pickleball, will be playing men's 4-0, and then me and is it Andrew? Boy, I'm sorry if I botched your name, but it's been our contact for Winner's Edge shoes, and he was also on Discord a lot, and he and I are playing men's 4.5. So I'm doing 2 different divisions at the PPA there.
Are they different age groups? How are you doing that?
Yeah, different age groups.
Different day then.
Yeah. Same day, so potentially if it boils down to it and it's at the same time frame, then I'll just do the men's 4.0 because Matt and I had planned this earlier. But hopefully it works out where one's morning, one's afternoon. We'll see.
Well, if there's a young heckler there who looks half like me, that would be my son. And
is he going?
I don't know. He works in Mesa. So
okay.
I'll have him stop by.
Let him know. Anyhow, so yeah, that JOOLA event will be the launch of their paddle. And Eddie, you and I talked about what this is potentially going to look like in terms of their new paddle on our predictions episode for the first week of January. And I remember mentioning that I heard from Gordon that they didn't want to go full foam. And it sounds like that is potentially true. Now, just want to preface this with, these are all rumors that I pulled from Discord. And Matt's Pickleball did a good job of kind of collating all these rumors and put up a nice Instagram thread. So I'm looking at Matt's and as well as some other rumors from Discord, but the rumor is that it is not going to be a Gen 4 paddle. It will be Gen 3. And everything is going to be the same as far as the rumor mill goes, except they're going to put more flex in it. They're going to add a flex system, so a Gen 3 with a new flex system. There we
Well,
go.
John, YOLA's going to make money no matter what. But do you think this is the right move?
Well,
Seems like Gen 4 is kind of the wave of the future.
it is, but we'll see. Proof is in the pudding. I'm not going to make any judgments. It could be just an amazing Gen 3. My Gen 3s aren't bad, right? And maybe they found a way to make a Gen 3 play better than the current iterations of the Gen 4 fully floating foam cores. We'll see. But what concerns me is that flex system. Like already the JOOLA Pro 4s with, kind of the neck foam inserts. Part of the reason why they did that neck foam there with they actually ran the sushi roll foam on the inside of those. Sushi roll meaning that expanding edge foam that usually goes around the edge of the thermoform paddles.
New terminology for me.
That they actually put it on the inside of those neck bulge foams,
Right.
and that kind of made the neck a little more flexible. And that's what Ben Johns likes. And doing it's not an actual deflection machine, but I was testing with this machine that measures force and bending paddles, right? And I measured the JOOLAs as being kind of right in the middle of the pack in terms of neck flexibility. Now the Gen 1 paddles have a ton of neck flex because there's no carbon fiber seams going all around the perimeter. And then Gen 2s and 3 and 4s are typically much stiffer. Like the Selkirk boomstick was very stiff, as you might imagine, had a stiff neck. The 6.0 quartz, very flexible neck. All the paddle type bantams, flexible necks. And then the JOOLA Pro 4s, somewhat flexibility in there because, again, a lot of pro players like that. However, I do feel like, and I think the Pro 4s played great, but I do feel like neck flexibility introduces this variable that's very risky. It can go horribly, horribly wrong, right? Sometimes that neck flexibility just makes a paddle feel like garbage to some people. I'm not saying that the JOOLA Pro 5s will be like that.
What do the pros like about that level of flex?
That's a good question. I'd love to interview Ben Johns and all the people that like Hunter Johnson, all the people that love their Gen 1 paddles, Christian Alshon, and figure out why, try to kind of figure out why they do enjoy that flexibility. It just adds a unique feel. And to me, I don't like it. I used to be okay with it. And now that I've moved over to unibody, stiffer frames, that to me is the perfect feel on a paddle. I don't like the neck to flex.
Speaking of rumors, any rumors on new paddle shapes?
Yes, there is a rumor that they're coming out with a hybrid shape called the Cosmos. And there's been some images of Fed Staksrud playing with what looks like a blacked out hybrid shape paddle. Presumably this is the new JOOLA Pro 5. And again, all rumors. It could be. What's funny? The Perseus is a really hard shape to figure out from video. It's like sometimes it looks like a wide body, other times it looks like an elongated, other times it looks like a hybrid. And I noticed that when I've been filling in my, what are the pros currently playing with? And Fed mixes around his paddles a lot, and he would go to the Scorpius at one point and then back to the Perseus, and I was just looking cross-eyed at the screen trying to figure out. We'll see if this new hybrid shape comes to light. The rumor for the new price is going to be $299.
Ooh.
So they're going to bump up that $275 right up to $300, right? And there will be a new anti-counterfeit feature, which, I get. JOOLA is probably the most counterfeited paddle. But yeah, I've seen a lot of grumbling, at least in the paddle enthusiast community. They're like, oh, they're going to reintroduce another Gen 3 paddle and then charge $300 for it. How dare they? We'll see. Like I said, the proof's in the pudding. Maybe it's going to play amazing. We'll see.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Those are the rumors. So yeah, I will know in 2 weeks what my initial impressions are anyway. Let's jump straight into the meat and potatoes, Eddie. Paddles of the week. So we just did a couple this week. Right behind you. We've got even I can see that this is a bright color red. Even I don't even see red, but let's take a look at the Pickleball Apes Joy.
The Joy.
The Joy.
I'll preface this by saying, John, that because of this whole eye thing, I haven't been able to play at full speed for a week, and I've got another week to go. So anything I say today, take it with a grain of salt because
May change.
some good 2.5 pickleball
And those horse tranquilizers they gave you to kill the pain might also influence your...
A little Valium pre pickleball. Ever hurt anybody?
I'm going to go grab... They did not give me the S Plus in the Joy model, but I do have an S Plus in their
All right.
Pulse. Let me go grab that because that's important. This is not the Joy that I'm holding up. These are the Pulse full foams, which are coming out in March. Joy's coming out earlier. But I wanted to say that Apes has listened to consumer feedback, and one of the criticisms of the S shape, which was their hybrid shape, was that they were leaving some room on the table for the rule of 24, that being length plus width of the paddle can't exceed 24 inches. It came in at like 23.75 inches, right? So it was the length of a hybrid shape, but a little bit narrower than some hybrid shapes. So what they did with the S Plus was brought, I have specific dimensions here. The S Plus is 6 millimeters wider and 3 millimeters shorter than the S. So if you look, it's almost a whole edge guard shorter, that being 3 millimeters. And then width, it is...
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah, a little bit more than an edge guard.
Would you call that a hybrid?
Wider. Yeah, that's a hybrid shape. So in between 16 and 16.5 inches long. So we only played with the S shape in the Joy. Mm-hmm. Just wanted to give everybody a heads up that they do have an S Plus coming. All right. This is their budget line, and it is a full foam paddle. They'll be selling it for $99 after code, so competing with the Baddox and the Rhombuses. It's a full foam paddle, EPP center with an EVA perimeter. I'll show the X-ray on the screen here. Did I put the X-ray in your notes too?
No.
Did you get it?
That's all right.
Okay. You can see there is... Remember the Chorus Coda had kind of a thinner band of EVA around? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This looks similarly thin. There is a EPP center. They're using that diced core technology, but instead of linear incisions, they're doing like a bullseye circular incision in the center of the paddle, center of the EPP foam in the center. There is also some internal perimeter weighting system. I saw something in their specs about like a fiberglass on the perimeter, so maybe this is fiberglass perimeter weighting. You can see at 3 and 9 o'clock. There are some dark spots in the X-ray indicating more density. And it looks like the center EPP foam goes down into the handle. So we've got EVA wrapped around, starting in the bottom of the neck here and going up around the perimeter and then ending in the bottom of the neck. And then this foam in the center goes down in the handle. So that's a bit of a... I know that the Volaires, the new Volaire shifts, use something similar. It's not exactly a floating core. It's more of the peninsula-shaped core. And some people like to be more connected to their core and their handle, like that connection, to feel the ball a little more.
A lot going on there. Wow.
Yeah. So for $99, pretty darn good, at least on paper. Anything else? Oh, yeah, CFA layup. So carbon, unidirectional carbon fiber on the bottom, fiberglass in the center, and then aramid on the top. So this is that weaved aramid. I love it that Pickleball Apes is that was their jam, right? They were the first company to kind of popularize Kevlar on the surface, and they're still using it today.
It's great. Feels gritty.
Yeah, it is gritty. All right. That's all the specs. Let's talk about how we felt about the play. What do you think, Eddie?
Do you remember the author Marie Kondo? Mm-mm. She's a Japanese author. She hit it big maybe, 15 years ago with this quote of hers, "Does this spark joy?" And it was really about like organizing your house, but I think it can apply to pickleball too.
Okay.
Like, you got a ton of paddles. What sparks joy in you? So I'm not going to answer that question right now, but
we'll circle back.
It's not a bad question to ask. They kind of set me up for that one, right? So, I'm a big fan of Pickleball Apes. I've mained a couple of their paddles. I mained the Pulse for a long time. So I had really high expectations of this paddle and high hopes as well. I'm going to let you talk about kind of the feel and the nuance of that. For me, the power was adequate, maybe low end of the top tier of power. Spin felt really good. I do like the surface. I feel like it's very gritty. But for me, John, the forgiveness was not there for me. And it was a bit of a letdown because, again, I had some high hopes for this paddle. I would give the sweet spot average for Gen 4. Nothing spectacular, nothing terrible either, but just not sort of the really forgiving paddles that we've seen a lot of lately. There was a lot of shots I thought were well struck, and the ball went exactly where I wanted it to go. It went at the exact speed I thought it was going to go. It just didn't feel good coming back to me, and the feedback was not there.
Coming back to you in terms of like what's coming through the handle.
Yeah. At times, unexpectedly thin feeling and harsh, and that could be the fiberglass in the layup. It could be the things that are going on in the core, but that was the feeling I was getting back from a lot of shots. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Marie Kondo also said in a quote, she said, "Never discard anything without saying thank you and goodbye." So with that, I'm going to say arigato and sayonara, because this one didn't do it for me.
All right.
But I think that pulse is going to be worth waiting for. We'll see.
Well, I have a different opinion.
Okay, great.
I like it. So, yeah, I do like this Joy. I think it is going to be a little more polarizing than their other options. But my initial impression was, okay, air mid surface, full foam, diced core is going to feel soft and a little mushy, just like, the last three paddles that Apes has released, and it's the opposite of soft and mushy. It is very crisp and poppy and stiff, right? Which I don't mind. Now, granted, I used to be I like the softer catch and release style paddles. It just makes me feel a little more comfortable on resets, but I'm still maining the Selkirk boomstick, so I'm very used to a stiff paddle, and I actually liked that they went in opposite direction on the feel of this paddle, because they were starting to kind of pigeonhole themselves into the soft top of all court paddles, right? I would still call this probably top of all court power.
Okay.
I'd got to play with it more, put some more weight on it. It might creep up into the power category, but for me, it's not a power paddle yet. But very crispy feeling, very connected to the ball. But you got to like a stiff paddle. If you don't like a stiff paddle, you're not going to like this. But I like that they went with it. I like that they're just like, you know what? We're going to put out a paddle, and it's going to be a stiff paddle.
Well, they achieved that.
People who love stiff paddles need some love, too. But, yeah, that also, like, one of the things I keep mentioning is that, and we're still kind of exploring our way through this, is what happens when you slice up expanded polypropylene foam, right? And my experience with sliced cores so far is that it softens up the feel of the paddle. Sometimes it's fine. I'd say that the coral is like a perfect example of they hit the sweet spot on how to slice up a EPP core and get it to feel good. It's definitely a softer feeling paddle, right? But it doesn't feel too mushy. Sometimes slicing up a EPP severs those beads and makes it feel mushy, in my opinion, and I don't care for that. This one, there goes that theory. Like, they slice up this core, but it feels like, a board, to some people. I would say that it's a controllable board. It felt comfortable to me on resets going through the transition zone, because I'm so used to letting the paddle do the resets for me with my boomstick that, I felt right at home with this. What I was having issues with on this is that it's so lightweight. I've got that arrow curve top. This one's stock is a 112 swing weight, 6.26 twist weight, by the way. Not too bad for, such a low swing weight. But I was meeting the ball too far out in front because I was used to a 120 swing weight paddle. Putting edge perimeter weighting on it certainly helped. I didn't have enough to get it where I wanted to, but I think after adding some perimeter weighting, it mellowed out that crisper response a little bit, which I think would make it more appealing to a wider range of people. But it's still very stiff even after perimeter weighting. But yeah, just the shape of it. I would like to try it in the S Plus and the elongated for sure before I judge it. But this shape just didn't do it for me. But overall, I feel like it's going to be well received. And even though the Rhombus Quanta as a budget full foam paddle is also stiff, there's a very different stiff feel than the Quanta. Do you know what I mean? So there's a place for it on filling out the feel map. Where would I put it on the feel map? Definitely stiff, and I need to bounce a ball. I think I described it as kind of like in between the dense and the hollow, somewhere in the middle of that dense hollow, maybe leaning a little bit on the dense side.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so
you like it. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up for me on this.
Awesome.
I like that we can have two kind of opposing perspectives on paddles. All right, let's move on, Eddie. The Enhance is also coming out with a budget full foam paddle. This is their Turbo, and Turbo's coming out in 3 shapes, and they're going to have EPP option, which is the type of foam in the center, and an MPP foam in the center option as well. We don't have the MPP yet. We're going to get those next week to test out. But basically, it'll be 6 new full foam paddles on the market for
nuts. This
$99.
Gone nuts.
Yeah,
they're crazy.
They are cooking, man. And Enhance is just like, you know what? I'm going to put out a paddle every week.
Well, there's something going on because their formula's working for me.
For sure. Thank you, Drew. I asked for a X-ray, and he sent that right over. It looks really similar to actually the Joy, except it is fully floating. The EVA band goes all the way around. It's actually not that similar to the Joy. What I'm saying is similar to the Joy is that it also has some internal perimeter weighting at 9 and 3 o'clock. You see that?
Yep.
Same location, about the same length. I don't know what it is, lead or dense fiberglass or carbon fiber, but I like it that they're going that route. Like I said, the center, in this case EPP core, is entirely surrounded by the EVA band. And yes, they also have the MPP X-ray in here. Looks like the MPP foam is a little bit denser, judging from the darkness of the X-ray. So, like I said, they come in 3 shapes. So there will be an elongated. Which one are you holding? That's
This
the
is the
elongated.
wide body.
It's the wide body.
Yep.
Okay. So an elongated, there is a wide body, and then there is a hybrid long handle. Let me go grab those. I hit with the elongated, you hit with the wide body. So pretty standard on the elongated and the wide body. I'd say the wide body has a little bit of a shorter handle, right? Probably 5.3 inch.
I don't know.
That?
It feels a little longer than that, but
Okay.
they're not that far off, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess it's about the same as the elongated. So we're going to call it 5.5, but that's not a 5.5 inch handle. That's the extended handle hybrid. And I'm pretty sure this is the only hybrid shape. You can't get a standard handle, but that is...
What is that, a 6?
That's at least a 6. That is a long handle.
Been working on my 3E.
Your 3E. You put a foot in there too?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I don't know. That seems pretty niche on the hybrid. You know, I'm not sure why they went
Such
so
a small
long.
face, too.
Yeah, it does shorten up the face. I need to play with it before I criticize it, for sure. But my thought is that it's going to flatten out the sweet spot lengthwise, you know, kind of burger-shaped sweet spot a little bit. But anywho, what else we got on here? I think I wrote some of the specs on here, or did I not? Did not. I don't have a swing weight and twist weight for you. From my recollection, it was decent on the elongated paddle. I want to say that the twist weight was the swing weight was under 120 and the twist weight was just over 6. So a decent spec-wise on the metrics. All right, Eddie, let's jump into our thoughts on the play of
Man,
these.
John, hard to believe that this is a budget paddle. I mean, this company, Enhance, just keeps on coming, and this is maybe their best paddle yet. Even better than the Ankh, in my opinion. I would love to just show it off more, but unfortunately, it's kind of hideous to look at. the colors and the graphics. I mean, this thing plays like a G-Wagon. It's smooth and refined and capable, but man, it's about as sexy as a mail truck. It just does not. It does not look great.
They do kind of like their NASCAR themes.
You do? Okay. I hate it.
No, I didn't say I like it. I
Oh,
said they do like their NASCAR
they do.
themes. I'm not mad at it, but
Man, their Ankh looks so good, but this one is just not up to the mark. But performance-wise, maybe even a little bit better.
okay.
Yeah. Power solid. You know, I put it in the middle of the range. Spin is not noticeably good nor bad. You know, a smidge on the hollow side in terms of feel.
Mm-hmm.
Slightly stiff. But man, I am getting good feels with this paddle, John. It is spot on. This has to be one of the most forgiving paddles of the year for me. You know, unlike the Apes Joy, the sweet spot on this thing, to me, feels incredible. I mean, if you're missing the sweet spot, you're not going to blame yourself. Blame your partner, because it's not the paddle's fault. This thing's killer. Lots of confidence building with this paddle. It's very intuitive. For me, no errant mishits or hot spots, nothing crazy on resets or blocks. It's just amazingly predictable.
Okay. Yeah. And you put your 3 gram...
3 gram pickle clips on there, and
3 and 9.
just boost up that twist weight even more.
Okay.
But yeah, fantastic offering. I don't know what the price is, but
$99.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, after Cub.
So good.
Yeah. To me, I like these a lot, but I think there's another paddle out there already that matches this very closely, at least on the elongated I hit, and that is the Vatic V-Cell Pro. And it has that same feel, about the same level of firepower. Both hit really good. And I do think this is a great option from Enhance, and I'm just trying to speak as objectively as possible because I like this better than any of the other Enhances paddles because I like the stiffer hollow feel. I didn't care for the Ankh and what was their one before that? I forget.
I've already forgotten.
But they're on the denser side, which a lot of people love, but personally, that's not my preference. This one hits the sweet spot, no pun intended, in terms of where I like a paddle to feel and its play characteristics. But it's so close to the Vatic V-Cell Pro, and it's the same price. I think it's a valid option, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot in the paddle market to be in right now to come up with something slightly different than everything else. You know what I mean? So it does kind of overlap in the same realm as another paddle that's the same price out there. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying, that's part of this. I'm really looking forward to the MPP version of this because that's going to hit very differently, and I think that's going to be probably the more popular of these version of these.
You're probably right.
Yeah. So we'll see next week when we get the MPPs what they're going to hit like. If they have a personality of their own and we hit with the same size sweet spot, I could see them being a huge hit for $99.
Man, if your main competitor is the Vatic V-Cell, I'd say you're in pretty good company because that paddle it's been on my top 5 for a long time.
For sure. All right, good stuff, Enhance. And I just want to say again, both of the owners of Enhance are just a joy to work with. Really nice guys, and shout out to them.
Awesome.
Let's move on, Eddie, to gear of the week. So we got these new Selkirk Court Strike shoes V2.0 a while back, but I wanted to wait to talk about them until we've had some time on the court with them. I've been maining these since I got them, and I don't know how much court time you have with them, but so first of all, they've got a whole new slew of colorways, and the colorways are pretty spot on. So very tastefully done colorways. You can go simple white, simple black, and then a whole bunch of stuff, in between those. So kudos to them on that. I have been playing with the regular court strikes, which I think they're now $110 if I'm correct. Let me look at the prices here.
108.
108, thank you. 108 versus 128 for the pros. So I feel like they went up slightly, right? Weren't they $100 even before? Now they're 108.
I don't know, John.
Not sure. Anyhow, they've changed some things, improved some durability. Both of these shoes have 6-month outsole warranties, which is flipping fantastic, And to be honest, there are no shoes out there. If you are an aggressive player and playing 5 times a week on a gritty, hard court, no shoes are going to last 6 months. But Selkirk will definitely back up their warranty. For most other people, for a lot of people, they will last 6 months if you're not sliding on the court and being really aggressive. Regardless, I've been wearing these now for 4 weeks straight, and I'm barely seeing any wear. Not to say that they're better than all of their shoes, but I'm just saying that they definitely improved the durability of the outsole because the original ones that I had, the court strikes, the outsoles wore down pretty quick. Have you noticed any wear on yours?
Unbelievably no, John. And I would say that, remember that movie Tommy Boy where they're talking about the warranty is about as good as the paper is written on? It's like most companies just throw something out there. But I actually might believe this might make it 6 months, even with hard use, because I've seen nothing in terms of wear in, 15 hours.
Okay.
Which, not a huge amount of time, but not insignificant either.
Yeah. Yeah. So outsole looks promising. The reason why I always start with the regular court strikes, and then I try the court strike pros. the regular court strikes, you can wear these around as lounging shoes. They're that comfortable, you know.
They're so comfortable, and the break-in is almost nothing.
Yeah, you can break them in a day for sure. They don't provide as much support, so if you really need to be locked into your shoes, I would go with the pros. The pros do need more break-in. I haven't even tried these new pros at all. I've tried the pros in the last 2 sets of shoes they sent, and I never liked them as much as the regular just because of the comfort level. I should probably get used to that level of support, though, because I have had foot problems in the past and even surgery recently on my foot, so it's probably a good thing to have more support. Regardless, I don't feel like my foot's definitely not sliding around. One thing that I didn't care for me personally, but I probably understand why they did this. They definitely went with a wider fit on V2.0 than the original ones. I feel like the original ones, because you have a very wide foot, I have a very narrow foot, but we are both able to wear them comfortably. I feel like that was the magic formula, but that's N=2 sample size. I'm sure Selkirk has a big database of demographics and they know where to come in. But for me, these didn't fit as well as the original ones.
That's interesting because I would not classify this as a wide shoe. It's definitely a standard shoe, maybe a touch on the wide side, but it's I wouldn't classify it as wide.
You can see I had to pinch the laces in the middle of my foot quite a lot, and that leads to like these long shoelaces and then big old goofy looking bows when you tie it. Regardless, they still fit my foot, so I agree with you. My feet are very narrow, so they're not very narrow. I'd say that they're narrow. So I'd say they are, mid in terms of width, leaning towards wide feet. But if you have a wide foot, you're going to like it. Or you have mid foot. Comfort's good. The stability's been good. Again, I've been using my Blue Maca insoles. They're making a squeaky sound in these shoes. I don't know if you had the same issue. I don't know if it's the types of foams, but I thought it was going to go away, but you can actually hear it. When I walk, it's squeak, squeak, squeak.
I've been using the stock insole, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Are you? Okay.
It's got good support.
Once I went Blue Maca, I can never go back. I still loving the Blue Maca insoles. Let's go down with the specs on each one. So the Court Strike, not the pros. Their audiences, they're everyday players who want more comfort, but reliable traction and performance. The outsole on both is this Selkirk 4-way grip outsole, which has now an upgraded abrasion resistance rubber. There's also a new wear zone protection on both of these shoes. The stability, so the regular Court Strikes have a regular insole, and then on the Court Strike Pros, they have a midsole plus a TPU shank in the midsole here to provide some improved shock absorption as well as torsional stability. So you can definitely feel when you try to twist the Pro, it resists the twisting a lot more than the non-Pro, right? So a lot more support there. Comfort level, they say on both, they've upgraded to a 3-layer cushioning system to improve comfort. I will say that, these regular Court Strikes, very comfortable. And both, again, come with this 6-month outsole warranty. So you can see the difference side by side on looking at the pros versus not. There's just, this is the improved support. I can feel the TPU shank beneath whatever rubber or foam they're using here. And there's just more support overall on the pros than there is on the regulars. All right, Eddie, what are your thoughts on them?
I actually prefer the regular Court Strike.
Okay.
I don't really need the support. I feel like, in the heat of the moment in pickleball, I like to get low, and that requires a lot of angulation, and sometimes extra support can get in the way of that. So for me, the base level shoe works great. It's very breathable. For me, there's enough support underfoot to get me where I want to go with some springs. So all good things from the Selkirk. I would say it's probably one of my top 2 pairs of shoes right now.
Okay. What's your number 1 or 2?
I would say this is tied for number 1 with the Babolat, the
Babolat.
Jetmock Pickleball.
Okay.
But very similar shoe in that they're neither one is very, I would say, targeted to the person needing a lot of support.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I'm duly impressed, and I could definitely I have been maining this shoe, and I have no complaints. I'm not a a shoe snob by any means, or a shoe reviewer. But I do have my preferences, and each to their own in terms of shoes. You got to find the right shoe that fits your particular foot. This one, like I said, a little bit wider. I haven't found the perfect shoe for me in terms of stability and fit yet. But these, for the price, I feel like are definitely some of the better options out there. And the looks, so like looks are important, especially on shoes, right? Like you can do a blackout paddle. Most people don't care as much about their graphics on a paddle. But if you're wearing shoes that make you feel bad about the looks, then that's not a good thing. You got to have a good looking shoe.
You ever heard of lock laces?
They remind me what they are.
So I actually have them on my Hokas here. They're elastic replacement shoestrings, and so you can tighten these up as you need to. But that elasticity gives you just very even sort of tension on the entire top part of the shoe.
Nice.
And it does give a little bit. So again, if you're not in need of a lot of support, but you like that sort of huggy feeling in a shoe, I replaced the standard Selkirk laces with these lock laces, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and you don't have to struggle with tying your shoes all the time.
And they never come untied at the middle of the point.
Cool. When Selkirk went into the shoe business, I was like, ooh, that's a big bite to chew off, but they've done it well. You know what it reminded me of? Remember way back when there was Google Maps and nobody else had a navigation, like a publicly available navigation system. And then Apple, I feel like it was a couple of years after Google was like, we're going to do our own. And I was like, uh-oh, Apple's way behind. And originally it was total garbage, like Apple Maps compared to Google Maps. But they just stuck through it, and now it's definitely a competitor, or some people think it's better than. And it's a very smart move from them. It didn't take Selkirk long to get on track. In fact, the first versions of their shoes were good. But I remember thinking, like, oh, man, you're going to try to compete with like Babolat's and stuff. Good luck. And they are. They are doing it now. So kudos to Selkirk.
Thought I caught you using MapQuest the other day, John.
My wife still calls it MapQuest. I'm like, what? Are you in the 1990s?
Our audience wants to know when you're going to start doing ball cannon testing on shoes.
If I can figure out a way, I will, Eddie.
It's important.
Yeah. Which shoe will actually blast out of a ball cannon? Speaking of ball cannon, let's get into tales from the ball cannon. I've been doing some spin testing, as I mentioned a few episodes ago. Moving off of, doing manual serves to get top spin RPMs and moving to incorporating my new high-speed camera and capturing a ball shot out of a cannon at 55 miles an hour and glancing blow off of a paddle oriented at 30 degrees. And I tested all the angles and inbound speeds and everything until I found the right ones. And then measuring the RPM coming off of there. And the results are lining up pretty close to, or correlating pretty close to my results I got with my arm, but I trust the cannon much more than I do my arm. And I'll have more information in terms of any surprises that might be forthcoming. I do know for a fact that some paddles get like 2,300 plus RPM, but most are falling lower than what I can generate with my arm. Now, I don't have quite an explanation for that yet. But for example, this Hurricane Pro, like 2340 is what this Pickle Hurricane Pro came in at, which I knew as a high spinning paddle. My results came in, I think, like at 2400. And I remember it did fail EPP A certification toward the end of last year. So they had to refine their grit. I knew it was a spinny paddle, but I did not expect to get that from the cannon. A lot of them, though, that I'm getting around 2100 RPM are falling around 1800 RPM on the cannon. So it's kind of accentuating the gap between the super high spinning paddles and the kind of average good spinning paddles. So, but I think that's going to be useful for people to understand, okay, this one is actually, super spinny at 2300, 2200, and then this one, falls much lower. So it'll be interesting to kind of flesh all this out. Regardless, as I was doing the spin test, I had some ideas, and shout out to Christian at Carbon. He is their product development manager who reached out to me after he watched the video about the ball cannon test results on eyewear, right? And instead of being angry, like, you showed our glasses blowing up, he's like, love this. What can we do to kind of support this, And I told him, I'm like, I'm redoing the experiment with a gel head with the bone structure underneath to get it more accurate and more realistic. And he's like, you want some more glasses to test? I'm like, yeah, these are going to definitely get damaged, so don't send me any brand new ones. But he sent me like a whole bag of new carbon glasses. So we're going to, anyway, he mentioned, he's like, I saw you're doing spin testing too. And I've heard from some other people doing mechanical spin testing that you can actually get a good estimation of the RPM just by looking at the angle of the launch angle alone, right? And I was like, I have noticed that because the ones that get lower spin, I'm assuming the ball sliding across the face a little more and you get a lower launch angle. I see. You know what I mean? So if the paddle's oriented 30 degrees, the ball hits it, slides, and then it goes off at a low angle versus it sticks and spins immediately, it's going to launch higher, right? So I wanted to test this. And by the way, we'll get to your coral before and after results. Please remind me, because I probably will forget it if I do remind me to get there. So what I did was take about 10 paddles and spin tested them all and set my camera on a tripod and directly perpendicular to where the balls launched out of the cannon, and took a protractor later on video and oriented it. Did you get a chance to look at the videos I uploaded? Yeah. Okay, I'll show those in B-roll now. But you can see a distinct difference between higher spinning paddles and lower spinning paddles. The higher spinning paddles have a higher launch angle than do the lower spinning paddles. And what my range was for the, I think, 11 paddles that I tested was 16 degrees on the low end to 22 degrees on the high end, actually. It was a little higher than 20.
So this is a fixed angle. Every paddle's set up at, what did you say, 30 degrees?
30 degrees.
And so the only variable really is, the interaction between ball and paddle.
Yeah, exactly. The inbound speed is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, 55 to 60 miles an hour. So what I did then is took the one that got the lowest launch angle and the one that got the highest launch angle and combined those into one video. And you'll see that the video looks a little offset, and what I had to do there is that so these two paddles are the Diadem Vice, got the lowest spin at 1185 and the lowest launch angle, and the Speed Up Tide, thank you. The Speed Up Tide got the highest RPM at 2192 out of the sample that I used this for, and it had a 22 degree launch angle. Now the ball hit the Diadem Vice a little bit, I want to say, lower on the face than it did on the Tide, so I just raised the impact location up exactly the same to show exactly what the trajectories are. And I'll show that in B-roll now, so you can see them diverging. The balls hit at the same spot, and then they diverge. The Speed Up Tide is a higher launch angle, and the Diadem Vice is a lower launch angle. Now, if you're looking at this and being like, okay, that is 6 degrees of difference, that is minuscule and nothing. Well,
not even 6 degrees.
I have a revised 22 degrees versus 20 degrees. Yeah, so looking at 16 to 22.
I see. Yep.
I went deep on this, Eddie, and I actually built an AI model to project what this angle of difference on a ball struck from the baseline is going to result in going over the net. And then I went even deeper, and I'm like, what happens when you do different RPM? And this model, and I plugged in like ball distance decay in terms of how quickly the ball slows down, because I had that data from my Stalker 3S radar gun. So I took a bunch of entries that came in at 55 miles an hour, and the Stalker records the peak velocity when the ball is just off the paddle, and it also records when it passes the radar gun. And I have the radar, I usually position the radar gun at the net when I'm doing serves and all this. So I had all that data, and I plugged that into ChatGPT, and it pulled in some other references. There's like a master's thesis from someplace in Canada who looked at the Franklin X40 ball and how it behaves with different levels of spin and how quickly it slows down. So this is actually,
that is
like,
insane.
I should have found a way to save this model, like export it into Excel or something, because I spent half the day on Sunday doing this. I shouldn't be doing this much work for a little segment on the podcast. But so basically, this is not just calculating angle launch angle in which it is struck. It's calculating dip and spin and all the other things. All right, so looking at 55 miles an hour, hit from the baseline, contact at 24 inches above the court, which is about where we're hitting serves and topspin drives. A 6-degree launch change in launch angle translates into about 21 inches of extra height over the net, right? So you're seeing this spread just over a few feet, a couple feet on the high-speed video. Translate that to 20 feet to the kitchen, and you can see it matters a lot. So
and how does topspin figure into that equation?
So the topspin, it's called Magnus dip or rise, and the topspin leads it to launch at a higher angle and lift at a higher. You keep the launch angles the same. It will lift with higher spin a little faster and then dip faster at the far end of its arc trajectory, and that's called Magnus lift or dip, right? So looking at the first profile here, and by the way, this is not directly baseline to baseline at a straight. Hardly ever do we hit a ball straight across the court. We're typically going cross court to maximize our geometry, right? So I did that. I made the model calculate a cross court hit from about 2 feet inside the middle of the line on the baseline to another 2 feet on the opposite side. So imagine just your typical serve, right?
Sure.
So looking at that, you can see that the blue line on top is the higher spin paddle, and this shows the difference in angle, that 6-degree angle, launch angle, and the red line on bottom is the lower spin. So that's the speed up on top and the diadem vise on the bottom. So you can see, clears the net by much longer. Now, what happens if you actually tilt the diadem vise? You open up the paddle face 6 degrees more, so you're hitting the paddle face so that it launches at the same angle as does the speed up. So that's the second one on the bottom. And you can see, as we all know, if you generate more topspin, you're going to get that ball to dip in easier. So the higher spinning paddle, the blue line, dips in a couple of feet short of the baseline, and then the diadem vise goes just out. So what I think the most useful information that came out of all of this is that we've been getting a lot of questions like, what in the world does paddle launch angle mean? This is something that paddle reviewers kind of started talking about in common last year. And we're like, some paddles just have a higher launch angle and others not. And I remember playing with that speed up. I remember coming back, we talked about it in the podcast, and I was like, that has a really high launch angle. I was really having a hard time figuring out where to hold the paddle, which angle, so I didn't launch face level, right? And then that actually worked out. So what is controlling launch angle of paddles, I think, is 95+% spin, right? And if we look at the profile in high-speed video of what's going on, and I did those two paddles, you can see on the diadem vise, that ball slides a good 4 inches across the face of the paddle, when it hits. Versus the speed up, it's maybe half an inch to an inch of ball slide, right?
Is it really spin or is it friction, John? Because
it's friction.
Okay.
Spin is the secondary part of it.
I was going to say, yeah. It seems like the ball would not start to rotate until slightly after initial impact.
Exactly. So the spin is the result of the grippiness of the paddle face. I don't know if friction is the right word. It certainly is friction on the Proton smooth face paddles, the Nanotech paddles. But whatever about the gritty paddles is causing the ball to stick to it. So the grippiness of the paddle. There's a technical term that's probably better than friction, because I don't want to confuse anybody with the coefficient of friction versus the grip. So regardless, I think that's explaining so much more. And another thing, the diadem vise is one of the dwelliest paddles. So dwell time alone does not explain launch angle. Now, we're thinking if the paddle pockets the ball and then launches it off, it's going to be a high launch angle, right? It doesn't work out that way if the paddle face is not gripping the ball. Now, I think there's going to be some dwell that comes into the launch angle on a paddle that does have a lot of grit or friction, and it does catch the ball. I think you're going to enhance that a little bit with some dwell time, but I think we're talking, in the order of 1 or 2 percentage points, something very small. The vast majority, the heavy lifting of the launch angle is just simply how much that face of the paddle is gripping the ball which results in high versus low spin. So you can say with 100% confidence that if you have a high spinning paddle, it's going to have a high launch angle. If you have a low spinning paddle, it's going to have a low launch angle.
You mentioned looking at other paddles, not just two. Were they kind of in a linear relationship to where these came out?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, you can predict with good confidence based on just the angle alone from the video where the paddle's going to fall in terms of RPM.
Wow, John, this is a thesis right here.
It's a thesis. So
I can picture you on a Sunday.
yeah, I know. I was telling Michelle, I was just like, you got to get me out of the house because I will sit here all day and refine this stupid AI model until it's perfect. So we did. We went and played some pickleball together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any further work in this area? What's next?
Oh, with the high-speed camera and the ball cannon?
No, just in terms of this particular experiment.
No, I think I fleshed it out enough. Like you said, I'm going to hand it over to some master's student, and they can do their thesis and work out more details.
Awesome finding, John. Oh, while we're talking about the coral, do you want to talk about coral spin?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, I forgot two things, Eddie. Let's rewind. Let's go back. Turn back the time machine. So first of all, you brought in your coral that you played with. What's your approximation of hours?
Let's say 30, a little over 30 hours.
Okay, so at least 30 hours you've been playing with this wide body coral, which, and it, the face does feel smooth. So I compared that to a new wide body coral using my ball cannon and new method of spinning, and they came in very close. So what are the results here? The new paddle came in at 1753. And again, this is ball cannon results, not my arm. My arm would come in a little higher. And the used came in at 1511. So it lost just over 200.
240.
Yeah. So not insignificant, but next step on that is what does that actually mean? And we don't have the distribution yet of all the paddles with the ball cannon to know how significant that is. But yeah, there's a noticeable.
How does that compare to the opal? Do you remember?
Did I test the new and the old?
I thought you did that in the boomstick.
Yeah, I did, but that was with my arm, right? The boomstick had very minimal, and the opal had. No, it wasn't the opal. It was the Inferno. The Inferno got about 300 RPM loss after 20-something hours, which is kind of standard for peel ply using my arm as spin, and the boomstick had less. Now, there's an inherent flaw in this whole methodology, and that is we're not using the exact same paddle. We're using the same.
Yep.
You have a paddle. I brought in a new paddle, so we don't know what the start of yours was, and we don't know how that compares to the newest one. So there could be, plus or minus 100 RPM at least difference in all of this. It's a very fuzzy kind of, but I do suspect that the drop we see is legitimate. It's nothing to be concerned about, but just one data point, we need to know. What a regular peel ply paddle with 30 hours looks like in terms of the exact same methodology.
Well, let's give it a go.
Yeah. One other thing. This is a huge one. I can't believe I forgot this. I skipped right over one of the things that I think is going to be very informative to a lot of people. A lot of people have been saying the lifetime balls do not get as good a spin as name your other ball, the Vulcan, the Franklin, whatever, right? So I wanted to test this, not with my arm, because I've been suspecting these results based on getting spin with my arm, but it's not as controlled as this. But I used the ball cannon and the high-speed camera. So what I saw is, I didn't put the number up here, but I tested a brand new Franklin X40. I tested a brand new Lifetime ball. They got the exact same RPM. I mean, down to the exact same number of frames. And so I got two of those. I did like 10 shots of each, and I see a clustering, and I choose that clustering. I got two of the exact same on the exact same frame rates and spin rate. This was, I think it was like 1700, somewhere around there. And this doesn't matter which paddle, but I'm using the same paddle, obviously. And that was on the Franklin ball. Then I switched to the Lifetime ball, and they all kind of clustered in there, and one of them was the exact same RPM. So there is no difference in spin. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, wait, I know that the LT ball doesn't get as much spin. So we're going to talk about that because one of our viewers actually made a similar comment. So let's jump back into our Q&A, shall we? Why don't we jump straight to that one, just so we're not jumping around.
From Marion Erickson?
Whichever one it was. Yes.
This was about cold weather performance for the
there's another
ball.
one. Or am I just wrong? Okay. Craig Coffey, 9191.
Oh, yeah,
writes,
there we go.
Yeah. Great pod. I like the LT ball feel, but I don't get as good a spin on it after watching the video. I'm wondering if that's because it springs back so fast, where the paddle might get the same bite on a ball that stays flatter that split second longer. That is a good point. So yes, the lifetime ball springs off the paddle quicker than does the many other balls, almost every other ball, especially the Franklin X40. And what he's saying is that extra dwell on the paddle, it might generate more spin. But it doesn't, according to these preliminary results. And I suspect it actually doesn't, because with my arm, I've been doing this now for months with the lifetime ball. And I switched over like 2 months ago to the lifetime in my database for power, pop, and spin. And I would go to the Franklin ball, which I was using before that, and the same day use the lifetime ball, and I would not see any meaningful difference between the two, right? So, and I did that experiment over and over and over again, and I finally validated it with the ball cannon. Now, what I think most people are seeing and why they suspect the lifetime ball gets less spin is because it gets less dip. And the reason why it gets less dip than the Franklin X40 or the Vulcan is because the holes are smaller, and the holes create air drag. That's their whole purpose. So when you put 48 holes in a ball, as the lifetime does, it's going to get less air drag, and it's not going to have that Magnus dip that you see with balls with larger holes. You take a indoor ball outside and rip a top spin serve with it, it's going to dip much harder than the Franklin X40. So you're seeing a slight difference in ball dip, and that to a lot of people, and myself included, I didn't feel like the lifetime ball got that great a spin. It gets the same amount of spin, just doesn't dip as hard.
Those holes make a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah,
interesting.
For sure.
I'd be curious to see how spin degrades over like the lifetime of a ball. Mm-hmm. You know, measuring your spin after 5 games, 10 games to see how the roughness of the ball
enhances spin,
that.
probably. Yeah,
it probably does.
Yeah.
Yeah. First question from BJJ and BS. I had the J2NF, and although I liked it more than the Quanta, I find most of these foam paddles to be super poppy, making resets and soft touch game very difficult. The Coral has played the most like a Gen 3 paddle to me. I'm curious for your thoughts on this.
Yeah. I hear this a lot, and I think this is the barrier that a lot of people who love playing with their honeycomb polypropylene cores are finding with regard to full foam paddles. And I hear it from amateurs up to pros, right? Mm-hmm. Like James Ignatowicz with RPM, he didn't want to use a full foam paddle because he loves the feel of polypropylene. It's more familiar to him. And that's the common complaint I hear, is that I feel like that pocketing is throwing people off. And there's something, especially with the pop, the shorter strokes, and the inability to reset as accurately with the full foam paddle. And yeah, I can feel that. I feel like I was way more open to full foams as soon as they came out, and I loved the feel of them. But I can see if you're really dialed into the honeycomb feel, it's just there's a different profile there. And yeah, there's a bit more springiness in the full foam lineup, especially when you add that layer of fiberglass. I feel like the full foam accentuates the boinginess of fiberglass for sure.
Yeah, but we've nevertheless played with some Gen 4s that are definitely on the softer side, less prone to that poppiness. I think there's enough variety out there where you can't necessarily write off all Gen 4s
100%.
for poppiness.
100%. I think once you get dialed into any paddle, it becomes controllable. And the potential to control a Gen 4 paddle, I feel like, is at least as good as any honeycomb polypropylene, probably better, because I think there's legitimate argument that the current full foam floating core paddles have a higher, larger sweet spot than do any version of a Gen 3 honeycomb polypropylene. So that broader sweet spot, I feel like,
agree with that,
gives you some more
You think manufacturers are looking at this poppiness issue and strategically trying to engineer around it?
I don't think it's that intentional yet,
okay,
but it certainly will be. I think there are paddle manufacturers out there right now who are intentionally making full foam paddles that are more accessible to those who loved the Gen 2 and Gen 3 honeycomb feel. And that we'll see a lot of those, I don't know a lot, but we'll see some of those being released in 2026 as kind of the entry to the full foam market, or at least another option in the full foam market that is more widely acceptable. Doesn't have as much of a foamy feel, but you're still able to leverage some of the positive qualities of foam. I see that being a big kind of low-hanging fruit for paddle manufacturers right now. Yeah, so interesting that he found the Coral plays most like a Gen 3. And I'd say the Coral, I get it, I do, but I'm expecting something a little stiffer to make that comparison to a Gen 3, a little stiffer and, more kind of JOOLA Pro 4-ish. So interesting that the Coral did it for him. I would put the Coral more like if you're loving the kind of the softer feel of the Gen 2, paddles, without any fiberglass, then that might be something for you. So, yeah, good question.
All right, got a question here from Marion Erickson, also about the Lifetime ball. We play outdoors, and the LT is a crowd favorite, but when the temps drop below 40, we find they don't bounce properly, almost like rocks, and they crack. In these temps, the Selkirk seem the best. They don't get the soft spots and go out around like they do in the warmer temps. Do you know why that would be?
I do not know why, in terms of the formulation of the plastics, but I totally agree. The Selkirks are by far the most durable ball overall, especially in cold weather. Do you remember the freezer experiment that I did last year? Originally I put them in the freezer in our kitchen and tested, and a few balls survived, didn't break when I was serving hard with them. That one of them was the Selkirk S1. I put it in my deep freezer out in the garage. Still couldn't get it to crack after an hour in the deep freezer. I put it in there overnight. It was the last ball standing. I could never get that stupid ball to break, despite being well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So very, very durable ball. And I haven't tested in that cool of weather below 40 degrees. I typically don't, I've become bougie.
Spoiled.
Remember you and I, we used to go shovel courts back before there were any indoor courts.
Mid-30s?
Yes, we used to play. But regardless, I haven't played with the Selkirk or the Lifetime in very cold temperatures. But good to hear this perspective. Apparently, the Lifetime ball does crack in very frigid temperatures and doesn't bounce as true as the Selkirk ball. What are your thoughts on this?
You know what? I also have not played a lot in cooler weather lately, so it's worth getting out there and seeing what we can see.
Yes.
It really hasn't been that cold here in Colorado, so
no.
Not really opportunities to do that. It's been in the 50s and 60s here.
We had a cold snap last week. Wanaka Lake's still frozen in parts, but it's very nice out there.
Yeah. Do you have access to liquid nitrogen, John?
I do not. Don't tempt me.
Just another thing to add to your laboratory.
Right.
One more question here from a good friend, Wings Up Peace Toronto. Your thoughts on the specs of the NLE Waters Franklin signature paddle? Would you play with these specs? And let's talk about the one that she is most likely to be playing with, and that's the 12.7 millimeter.
Cool.
What do you think? Could you play with this paddle, John?
Well, yeah, I could. I wouldn't choose to. Why don't you pull down the ALWC from Paddle Tech right there?
This one?
Yep. And grab the Hurricane Pro next to it. And this will give a good example of what the
Franklin's going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, the Franklin's definitely going to be this shape. Right. And technically, the Paddle Tech is a wide body, meaning it is not longer than 16 inches long, just like the Hurricane Pro comes in right at 16 inches. You can see they are the exact same length. What the difference is in the width. So the Hurricane Pro is, just over an edge guard wider than the NLE Waters. And the NLE Waters has a shorter handle, right? So they did leave some room on the table. This is what NLE Waters has been playing with since she started playing pickleball. Mm-hmm. And she is so dialed into this shape. And she may she's probably the most elite pro, the biggest goat in all of pickleball. And if you look at the ball dust on her paddle, it is size of a dime, right? She hits the center sweet spot of the paddle. She doesn't need this
Why
extra
do we need all that paddle
twist
face?
weight.
What a waste.
Right. She's gaining hand speed. Now the trade-off with gaining the hand speed is you have a less twist weight, more prone to twisting on off-center shots. And for us mere mortals, we do hit everywhere on the paddle face. So she may not need it. I do. I would much rather trade off the hand speed for a larger sweet spot, which is what this is doing and other standard / wide body shapes are doing. So no, I wouldn't play with it unless, for some reason, all the benefits did outweigh that big cost of a smaller, more narrow sweet spot.
Notably for me, John, the handle length of her new paddle, I think it will be the same as that. It's 5.1, very short, for my preferences. And also the handle circumference. You want to guess what that is?
Did you get the specs on the new one?
Yeah.
Okay.
3.9.
3.9? Holy moly. Okay.
You need a quadruple overgrip.
So read us all the specs then.
So 3.9-inch handle circumference, 5.1-inch handle length, 15.7 inches in length, and 7.9 inches wide.
Boy, that's a lot of room on the table. So they actually brought it out a little wider and shorter than her PaddleTech paddle.
And of course, 12.7 millimeters in thickness.
Yeah. It's a little bored. But you know what? That is going to have a more favorable sweet spot than both in terms of dimensions and internal construction as a Gen 3 paddle.
Yep. And we know she weighs hers up quite a bit.
Yeah. She's going to be hitting missiles with that new paddle. Good stuff. All right. That's the last question.
It is.
All right, Eddie. Fantastic show again.
Great show.
We will reconvene next week.
I will see you later.